Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Great pleasure to be here in this wonderful conference and a very meaningful event, which of course is important for Lithuania, but also is important for Europe, because Jewish culture and Jewish heritage is fundamentally the key component of European heritage, and especially looking towards next year, which will be proclaimed the European Year of Cultural Heritage. It is a very meaningful time to discuss the commemoration of the Great Synagogue of Vilna, and keeping in mind that the only convention, in fact, which European Union has ratified of UNESCO is that of protection and promotion of the diversity of cultural expressions. So it's a uniting component that unites two very important organizations, UNESCO and the EU, with the aim to indeed leave for the future generations the heritage that has shaped our destinies and identities of today. So here today we'll have now the final roundtable discussion, which will try to summarize the 2 days of very deep and enriching presentations and discussions on the past and the present of the Great Synagogue, of the European experience and global experience of preservation. We've heard interesting examples from Berlin to Cologne to Ukraine, of course to Israel. And indeed, I think it's very important for all of us to conclude what kind of message this conference brings to the world. And to do that, we'll have a very distinguished panel, a very interesting panel indeed. And I would like to invite here to take seats Professor Landsbergis, the former head of state of Lithuania. Yes, on the stage. Professor Braverman, the former president of Ben-Gurion University. Mr. Paviljonis, the member of Lithuanian Parliament. Mr. Rutkauskas, the director of the Old Town Renewal Agency. Dr. Grunskis from Vilnius Gediminas Technical University Architectural Department. Mr. Levinas, the chairman of Vilnius Jewish Religious Community. Mr. Gurevicius, the chairman of Vilnius Jewish Community. Mr. Ben Ari, chairman of the Association of Lithuanian Jews in Israel. And Madame Bashkauskaite, the Old Town of Vilnius Community chairwoman. So I think it would be very meaningful to start with Professor Landsbergis, as he is with us here today and he was with us yesterday. Professor, yesterday you were saying in your introduction that Jewish diaspora has been uniting European cities in terms of intellect and culture way before the idea of European integration and European Union. The aim of this conference was also to find consensus between the state, the city, the community on the future of the commemoration of the Great Synagogue of Vilnius. Do you think that the Great Synagogue of Vilnius can also become that uniting factor for all of us?
I much hope of it. It must, it should be, it must to happen. And we have all chances for it. Not a great number of people convened here. I feel that we have a great will, and it may be victorious. Let it be victorious, and bringing desired fruit of preservation, a restoration of great and deep values, and that value of belief in a life, in the creation of life on the sites chosen by the people of goodwill, that must prevail. There are some things of creation of building which are eternal, and temporary suggestions, temporary evaluations must to go away, to free concretely in material sense, but first in spiritual sense. They must to give a free place for creation or recreation of what is needed for us. I believe it is needed, not only for us here and not only for Lithuania, but for Europe, for the very European idea or idea of Europe, of unity of nations, of beliefs, of goodwill, still existing in Europe.
Thank you very much. I would like now to turn to Mr. Pavilionis, because he'll have to run away to the television studio soon, probably communicating also a message from this conference. Professor Landsbergis yesterday also said that the question of Great Synagogue is not just the question of Vilnius. It should be the responsibility of the state. You represent the main institution of the state, the parliament. And what kind of message do you bring from this conference?
Well, it will be more personal message that I created or developed being festival diplomat, and during my career in Washington, D.C., where we built a lot of bridges between Lithuanian and Litva community. I learned three things there. If we really want to continue to exist, we just have to follow the example of our Israeli brothers and sisters. We cannot continue to be just an average state. We just have to be the best. And that's what Shimon Peres was always saying, but that's what our thinkers were also telling to our president before we entered into final collapse of the Second World War. So we have to stick with you in order just to survive and learn from you. Then next lesson, if we want to glue the region and to recreate the harmony that once existed in this region, we just have to do it together. We did it together, and we did it successfully here together from 13th century, and this must be done. If we will go just narrow, enemies will divide us and rule. And that's why we have to stick together for the sake of the region. And then the last more global message, I was doing strange stuff, chairing Community of Democracy, global organization fighting for human dignity, human rights, and democracy. And then I found, again, my Israeli brothers and sisters who are fighting for democracy somewhere far away from us, but we are very similar in this regard. And for me, what happened during the Holocaust, it was an attack on our human dignity, first of all. And if we want to construct real quality democracy here, we just have to stick together. And my final, more critical point, I represent the opposition right now. I don't think that the current government is able to see the whole forest. They see some trees only. And that's why the situation with Great Synagogue, well, they might think education or some other, short-term, short-sighted priorities, but they don't see the whole picture, and they will not see until 2019 or 2020. So sorry for that. You have to survive, and the project has to survive. It will be supported by a lot of goodwill people, not only in my party, in different parties. But let's work hard, and I think finally we will come to that day where we will see the whole forest instead of few trees we see right now. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Professor Braverman, yesterday, you told us a very moving story of your own search of roots from Mariampole to, to the whole global journey that you've made. And you've talked about the great synagogue in the future as the place of tolerance and place of listening, and the place that could inspire young people. Could you perhaps elaborate more? So to build that tree, the wood of trees that Mr. Pavilionis was referring to.
Yes, as I said, tomorrow I'll go to the place of my grandfather, when my mother grew. And the first person to thank, I have to thank this gentleman to my right. Because in 1995, the head of your parliament, Professor Landsbergis, came to visit me at Ben Gurion University, and he offered me an invitation to come to Lithuania. It took me 1995, what's the UK count, we're in the European Parliament, what's the day today? It took me some time, but finally I accepted your invitation because of Zila and Anna and all the other people. So thank you, I'm glad that I'm coming to the place of Imarutsar. Thank you. And you have been an example, because today in the world, as I say, I wish you've been seen all over the world, people with such leadership like the person to my right. I'll be very to the point, because I came here and I'll tell you, I don't have to think now about what my party will think or the parliament. I'm not holding any position. I'm not a minister. I'll tell you my reflection in 5 minutes if I was involved in this project. There's always the first best. The first best, like Zila Zak put it together, if indeed, all of a sudden, it was Berlin, it was Washington, D.C., and the federal government, with a lot of money and intention, want to do that. I don't know how much costs this quarter Jewish project, but it's a beautiful thing. But let's assume, I'm an economist, that this may not be the case, and the honorable member of the parliament just hinted that they do not be the case. Neither there are maybe the resources nor the will to go in such a gradual fashion. If it's going to be in a more limited scale, I'll tell you my point of view that can be totally out of line and maybe irrelevant, because I'm ignoramus. I just landed naked in this place. My suitcase from Saturday may arrive this afternoon, and Anna dressed me. So that's all I am, naked in front of you. First, I'll start with what not. It shouldn't be a religious site. God knows that today, among the Jews even, what happened with religions, that the ultra-Orthodox do not accept the Reform and Conservative with the most the American Jews. So I won't let any religious group take it over, one thing. Second, it should not be building, from my point of view, all the synagogue. There are many synagogues. All over the place, there's not many prayers. I saw the example from Cologne, from Germany. You make some symbol of that, maybe part of the excavation. There's no need for monuments. There are many monuments in the world. What is lacking is spirit and tolerance. And therefore, and I'll give you an example from Jerusalem, experience that I witnessed and I laughed. If this is to be a center, reflecting on the past, but looking for the future based on the present, and it's about dialogue and tolerance, it shouldn't be extravagant. It should be with humility. And I'll just give you one event from Jerusalem. The mayor of Jerusalem at the time, Ehud Olmert, invited me when Frank Gehry came to Jerusalem. Some of you know the great architect Frank Gehry, together with some Jewish billionaire. And they wanted to build, which may they still build, a museum of tolerance in Jerusalem. And Mr. Olmert got up and said, now Frank Gehry is going to do for Jerusalem what he did for Bilbao. I almost fainted. Why? Bilbao, with all the due respect, nobody knew about that. When Frank did his major, exhibition, a museum, everybody come to Bilbao. Jerusalem is the best brand in the world. You don't need Frank Gehry to put. And definitely you don't need museum from tolerance in Jerusalem. You need tolerance because Jerusalem is probably the most intolerant city of the world. And they're still building it. Tolerance. Vilnius have right now some tolerance. They used to have some tolerance. It disappeared in a horrible time. So if there is a place for tolerance represented by this man to my right, it should be with humility. So if not, I say what not, what yes. I first would say that it should take part of the past. Like the example that was from Köln, you take some of the part of the excavation, some of the thing that takes place that all of the people that will come. And the Lithuanian people see the great heritage that was here, a major debate. My greatest fear that the Chabad movement will take it over. Even that Rabbi Eliyahu, the Gaon of Vilna, hated them because he was the misnaged. You don't need this part, you need tolerance. And therefore, what I think that this should be essentially some excavation, some memorial whose reflection Professor Zak was studying here, but then how do you create a center that many people try in the world in this galloping horse of technology when terrible leadership all over the world of narcissists and corrupt people playing on fear and hatred, how do you create in this Jerusalem of Lithuania between Lithuanian and Jews and everything, but everybody, a sense that will represent what Europe. And I honored both Mitterrand and Kohl at the time at Ben Gurion, and we had major conversation about this thing. How do you create really this type of a thing? And for that, you need the most important thing. You need a special person that have intellect, that knows the art, that understands somebody between 30 and in the 30s and 50s that is a creator. The way many people create some. Should be, and knows also, of course, all the modern communication technology. This is the person. Around him, put a projector, somebody like Anna, you know, that can fix certain things. Do that with the endorsement. It maybe not be a Lithuanian. You put it from the moon. I don't know. You pick the best person. And it will be endorsed by the city of Vilnius, by the federal government. Because I come to finances. I'm an economist. Vilnius is not Berlin. You don't have the money of Berlin. So when I asked before the financing in Köln, that was a lot of millions, 90% was the government. You are a small country, you don't have that budget, it's not going to be that easy to do that. And therefore, you have to give an endorsement and say how much money you put in. And then I give now my 5 cents of wisdom, and I'll conclude about raising money. There is, some of you are scientists, you know the Pareto distribution, 10% and 90%. It's always 10, 5% of the people that give all the money. So I tell it to your president in America, the president of the South Africa, and the president of Israel. All you need to bring, there are many rich former Litvak Jews around the world. Bring 3, 4, that's all. You don't need more than that. Don't waste your time coming to conference and talking about Litvak. I raised most of my money, I raised $1.5 billion from 20 people. Well, that's the truth of the matter. And therefore, there are people like that. That's the all that brings them here, inspires them. They sit with the mayor, they sit outside. When there is money, they'll come in. And I'll just give you an example in conclusion. When I came here, all of a sudden came to me a person from a family that gave me the boost in the beginning. Phil Shapiro. Because when Ben Gurion had his vision about building the Negev and Beersheba, all the politicians laughed at him. When he left, they think the guy is a nut, and they didn't follow him. And he met an American Jew by the name of Jacob Blaustein. Jacob Blaustein was not a Zionist. He was a guy that found some oil and started having gas and became a multi-millionaire. He met Ben Gurion, and Ben Gurion told him about his vision, transforming the desert. And he went to him and created the Institute of Desert Research at Sde Boker. In 1990, when I left the World Bank, I went to this Blaustein family in Baltimore. They stopped, there was some problem with the university. I encouraged them to support us. And they continue. Shapiro is there from the family, sit there. So go find some of the Blaustein around, get the endorsement of the city. If you cannot build all the Jewish quarter, start something, and don't think the world is about stone. The world is about the heart. Landsberg is. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, many thanks for this political vision and inspiration. And after having heard three very inspiring political messages, let's move to the experts. Because, of course, for things to become concrete and real, we need to come back to the ground and hear from the experts that have been, of course, looking at this issue very closely. And I would like to start with Mr. Rutkauskas, asking him, after the 2 days of deliberations here and many examples that we've heard from different parts of the world, of different visions of restoration, what is your vision of the 21st century great synagogue of Vilna?
Yes, thank you for an opportunity to speak in this audience in front of you. Yes, firstly, I would just say, if talking about the vision, we should be brave and not narrow, what is just said. So having these samples we saw today and yesterday, I must say that most of them, in fact, shows and evidences more about what is obvious experience we already have, and was very little what is really the vision, like in the film we have just seen, which can present something what will happen, what could happen in soon future, or not very soon future. So, and in this perspective, I would like to say that we have had a very unique history. The great duchy we are oftenly pointing back, but we also should be open to point something forward. And what is about, basically about knowledge, not about the physics, not about the material things, but basically about knowledge and tolerance and humanity, which allowed our country to flourish many years ago. So I think that this center, okay, it is Jewish center of religious and library and knowledge, could become one of a stimulus of looking towards our history, not aiming to learn what happened, but aiming to learn why it happened and why should we do today, what should we do today to create a better future. So we should look for innovative ways of doing it. And I would say that yes, if go to the practical or expert things, then yes, the authentic remains is nearly everything what we have today in the city. But we have a knowledge which is spread all over the world today. The knowledge, human sensibility, humility, it was said today, and also some braveness to not be as everybody we are today, just to be more brave and more wide. And I think that the form of this center memorial could be something allowing to speak everybody from the world to say brave words, to express in a cultural and human way some knowledge and ideas that could raise the city, could raise the nation, which dominated and what we talk about today, to raise all those nations who are brave enough to be examples to others. So for me, we should talk about the form, how to accumulate the knowledge we lost, particularly in this particular spot, talking about the great synagogue and the people who were grown in it and have relations still. So I think that authentic remains and the site is only just starting point. But then we should invent and offer something even more brave than Köln is offering, not stereotype, something like a laboratory of knowledge, laboratory of historic and future research, and that could be a best monument we can build.
Thank you very much, and indeed. And now let's get a second opinion, as you know, in science we always should, from Dr. Grunskis from Vilnius Gediminas Technical University.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak in front of you and express my opinion. And I'm really grateful. I would like to say three things. As a participant of cultural field, I do believe and I understand the seriousness of this question and problem, and I think this problem is above the municipal level. It's a national level problem, and I think the attitude and the process should be organized accordingly, and as many participants as possible should be included in the discussion of this matter, and it could be broader circle of communities. It's the general note, and if to speak particularly, I do believe that the presentations of cultural memory could have various forms, but these forms are not always related with the building. Sometimes it's also the process, and this is important note for me, because today we saw the representation of building and solution, which is quite exact. Well, as a participant of educational process, I'm a teacher and teaching in the various schools of architecture. I believe that we have a huge potential to include the universities and institutes of higher education into the process, which actually would help to put this project and idea on higher level, analyzing more opportunities, organizing more workshops, which in all the cases are helpful. And the third note, as a practicing architect, I have actually a few of them. With all the respect to the authors of the representation we saw today, I would like to remind all of us that the socio-cultural context and socio-political situation changed dramatically in the last 25 years, and I'm really, really happy because of that. And I believe that ideas which were good 25 years ago are not always excellent today and had to be reconsidered usually or criticized, and some of them would actually stay and others would go away from the table. So I would think that the matter, the problem of synagogue, which is national level problem, should be discussed in different process, according to different process. I believe the international architectural competition should be organized, and the broader, circle of ideas discussed, various from the level of idea and then about the form, and that would give us the proper process, which actually also had to be organized less directive way and more initiative way, including more participants and more communities. Because, well, this problem, it doesn't belong to the one community anymore. It is a problem of national level. So it's not a question, should or should we not deal with this site and the problem. The question is how it should be done in proper way. So that's my remarks. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We've covered the political, the academic level, and a very important indeed component of this issue and this discussion is, of course, the community level. There were many messages throughout the conference asking for dialogue with the communities. Yesterday's message of President Adamkus was also centered on dialogue and how much that is important. And therefore, I would like to invite Mr. Levinas, chairman of Vilnius Jewish Religious Community, to share his thoughts.
גברת צילה, תודה רבה. פרויקט כל כך מעניין ויפה. Didelis ačiū Anai Avidan už tą puikią konferenciją, kuri mane labai praturtino. Aš dabar lygiai su didelis didžiosios sinagogos žinovas.
And I feel that I've become an expert on the great synagogue.
Dėl viso šito, apie ką mes šiandien esame susirinkę.
Regarding the subject, firstly, I guess we should acknowledge that the Jewish civilization in Lithuania has been ruined, and not only in Lithuania but around the globe. The only place for it to be rebuilt is Israel. So factually today, in Lithuania, we want to revive the civilization, or the close, the external greatness of what we've had, but this house will be empty. A synagogue is no synagogue if nobody comes to pray. It has to have at least 10 Jews to have prayer. This is not going to happen, just like it happens in currently rebuilt, restored synagogues in other Lithuanian towns. They are beautiful, but they make me want to cry. I know that it's no longer a synagogue, it's a beautiful building rebuilt in the form of the 18th century, and we receive calls people asking, can we dance inside a synagogue? I said, you can do whatever you want in there, because it's only an imitation of Jewish civilization. It's no longer a synagogue. And the project that we saw, that Ms. Zagt showed, it's only an imitation. The question is, should we actually rebuild it, invest so much money and effort? And factually, the question remains why. Is it only for tourists? This synagogue is not going to be used for prayer, because the currently existing synagogue is half empty. Vilnius hosts approximately 3,000 Jews. This conference and the synagogue project are very interesting as artifacts dealing with our past, and it's very sad that we will no longer have what we've had. We can have illusions and fantasies. It might be beautiful, but I don't understand it. But we need to think about the concept of the synagogue. Can we rebuild the synagogue? No. If it was built, it should have remained. We cannot return it. You cannot return the temple in Jerusalem. We have the Wailing Wall only. So for me today, the Great Synagogue is a sort of Wailing Wall commemorated to the civilization of Jews in this part of the world. I've talked to professors and some guests visited our synagogue and asked Professor, what should we do next? And he said, I don't know. What can we do next? And I believe that the archaeological efforts are very professional, careful, and responsible, and whatever remains is the most valuable thing. We need to conserve this, to make them available, to make the remains of the civilization available, and we can approach it as the Wailing Wall. And it's, I don't know whether it's going to work. It's like artificial impregnation. It might work and might not, but this is what's happening in my mind. This is very close to my heart. I'm not very religious, even though I am a chair of a religious community. But I want to thank you for your wonderful thoughts, and the professor and my colleagues, and hopefully we'll have a solution. Something good, some fruit will be born. Thank you.
Ačiū labai.
Thank you.
Noriu paklausti pono Gurevičiaus, Vilniaus bendruomenės pirmininko.
Mr. Gurevičius, the chair of Vilnius Jewish community, how do you see this idea? And what do you think? Are these efforts a little bit artificial, and are they important?
I had a long speech with a lot of points prepared, but as all the speakers are saying, I have got 3 things to say. So I decided to come with 3 things as well. So whatever would be done, and I'm not a specialist to say how and when and so on, I think there are 3 most important things for this place. Number 1, we should agree that whatever is now is not a good way to commemorate the synagogue. Number 1 stage is if the city, the society agrees, this space has to be cleaned from whatever was built by the Soviets and should be allowed for the professionals to do their job. And then, according to these results, there will come another 2 very important points that this place should commemorate. So 1 is to identify what is the real situation, to find out there. Second thing, whatever will be done there should be done with the value of memory. Yes, we cannot rebuild the past, but we can pay the tribute to the memory. And when we speak about the great synagogue as a symbol of Jewish life of Vilna, it should really include the Jewish life of Vilna, which was not only the Vilna Gaon, with all the respect to this figure. There were many scientists, culture people from culture, that many people. So this site should be a symbol of memory for all the Jewish history, all the Jewish life that was, taking place in Vilna. The third point would be whatever we build from stone is amazing, but this should be a living memorial. It should be filled with Jewish life. And when we speak about Jewish life, it's also not only the religious life. It should be a place not only for tourists. It should be a place for Jewish people. Because many people speak about Jewish community of Lithuania, Jerusalem of North, only as a place of past. I disagree to agree with that. I want that my daughter, who is here in this hall and seeing these all maps, who is just 8 years old, that whenever she will be 118 years old, she will come to this place and will be saying proudly that this is a place where the Jewish life is still existing, with all the respect to the memory, to the history, to the Jewish past from the hundreds of years before. We should also create a living place. And I don't think there is a better memorial to the history of Jewish people than a living, small, proud, pluralistic Jewish community living here in Vilna. So I would like to thank all the organizers and all these honorable people that spoke here and put so much attention to that, and just to dream that one day we have this jewel, this crown of our Vilnius Jewish history, maybe Lithuanian Jewish history, back in place. And whatever form it will be, the specialists will say, but we cannot have a king without a crown. We cannot speak about full history of Jewish people, having only small parts restored and remembered. So thank you very much.
Many thanks. Enlarging discussion to the global community of Lithuanian Jews, I now turn to Mr. Benari and would like to ask his perspective from Israel.
First of all, I would like to thank all of you. It's a great conference, and it's my big honor to sit on this stage with some famous people that I know them from newspapers, from the news. And I am a representative of the biggest Litvak community. The largest community in the world is in Israel. I don't know how many we have in Israel Litvaks, maybe 40,000, 60,000, because it depends how you counting it. If my son that born in Lithuania is a Litvak for sure, my granddaughter, I don't sure that she is a Litvak. But you know, I visit in many countries and talk to intelligence people, and they ask from which place where you study. I say in Vilnius, Technion, Polytechnical School. And she said, Vilnius, it's what is Latvia? I know, no, it's Lithuania. But everyone knows what is going from Vilna, everyone. And I think it's important to take care of this point that one of the famous Litvaks is still going from Vilna. I think that the memorial center or to rebuild the old synagogue is important for Jews. It's not a question about it. It's important for Litvaks, but it's important for Lithuania, for Vilnius, and for Lithuanian people. I think that not many children that grow up after Second World War, they know what's happened after in the Holocaust in Lithuania, that 95% of Jewish was killed in the beginning of Second World War. And I think that what did Vanagaitė, I don't want to tell what she wrote, but it was bestseller in Lithuania because the young people want to know what's happened really, because it's the something that anyone don't speak about it. They want to ask the kids, the parents or grandparents, not to be asked the question, what you did, why you not save the Jews that my family, I don't know how many generations grow up in Lithuania, in small village of Miroslavas near Alytus. And I think that the Lithuanian people have to, first of all, to push the government of Vilnius city management to do something in this place that today looks very bad, very bad. And I think that the people that I met in South Africa, in the United States, that they are third or fourth generation of Litvaks, they still proud to be Litvaks. And it's a point that you have to take into consideration. I feel on this stage, it's like at home. I have an opposition in my organization, and it's. I think that we talked today enough. Now we have to do the real step forward. We have to decide what we're going to do. I sent to Anna the list what we can do. How can we help for that? I think it's if somebody wants to get a copy, I will be glad to share with you. And I think it's. After 26 years of talking without any results, it's now a time to do. And we, the Jewish community in Israel, will do whatever we can do, we will do.
Many thanks. That's very important words for all of us. And last but not least, very important to know what the people who live actually in the area we are discussing think, and have there been any debates or dialogues about it? And there I would like to ask Madame Baškauskaitė, who's the elder of the Senamiestis district of Vilnius, to tell her perspective to us.
Okay. Is this on? Okay. I have heard some really interesting things today. First of all, I'm an American Lithuanian, but I've lived in Vilnius for almost 25 years. So I guess the question is, when do you become a Lithuanian and you're no longer classified an American Lithuanian? I guess I'll always be on the edge. But I'm one of the people that came back. I have a business here. I'm involved in the community. And as far as people of Jewish heritage, I think that we have to take a very positive approach and say that people will come back to look, to ask, to learn about their culture. Maybe they'll come back to work here if the opportunities exist. I think Vilnius is a city that's growing. However, another thing is that 25 years is an awfully long time to just be speaking and discussing. I think that after this conference, I would encourage everyone to put a period at the end of the sentence, to roll up their sleeves, to get the funding, which you said is available, and I know it's available, and I'll tell you why I know. Because one of the Jewish people who I respect the most, and he has passed away, is a man named Mel Simon. He was a shopping mall developer in the United States, and I had the opportunity to work for Mel Simon, to work in his home as a personal coach for his child, Joshua. I saw Mel wake up in the morning. I saw him go through the day. I saw how much he helped the Jewish community, people who came from Israel, how much of his personal money he devoted to have projects happen. And he was a very, very wealthy man. If you punch into Google Melvin Simon, you will see how wealthy that family is and how much they contributed to Jewish culture. And I fully agree that there are people that would believe in this memorial and that have their roots in Vilnius, and they would do everything possible to have this monument happen. Don't wait for the government. I've never waited for the government. Since I've been involved in community service, if I had waited for City Hall to do something, I would not be sitting here. Because you never wait for other people. If you have a dream, you go after that dream. There are two people sitting in the front row, Mr. Žabulis and Mr. Vilnius. When they were probably 8 or 9 years old, if someone had said to them that Lithuania will be free, that we will have mobile phones that look like James Bond, when I was an undergraduate, I didn't have a laptop computer. Yet, look how far we've all come. Look, you've recognized your dream. I mean, Mr. Vilnius has a wonderful art collection. Mr. Žabulis has wonderful talent and technology. There are so many people on this stage with talent. You just have to pull yourselves together and make it happen. Do not wait for the government. That is the biggest mistake. Because today, when I was walking my dog past the site, as I do every day, what did I see? I saw the sign with the map of the former synagogue with graffiti on it. The grass was not mowed. The city, in advance of this conference, should have taken a weed whacker, a grass trimmer, and at least cleaned up the area. They didn't do that. When someone is expecting a guest, when I'm expecting a guest to come to my home, as I'm sure all of you do, what do? You sweep around your house. You clean the place up. Nobody even cleaned the place up. I'm ashamed. And yet, I am the person who, with the community, we put in the basketball court. We put in the children's playground. The city told us they don't want the basketball court. They don't want the playground. We made it a place where people come. And phase 1 is to get rid of the mistake of the school. That's a no-brainer. That school has to go, period. If the city doesn't give money for that, have the people that donate the money put up the money to get rid of the school and move those children somewhere else. That's a real simple one. Then there's the question of cleaning up the area. Because in Sila's presentation and all that's been said, no one talks about the fact that people live there. And it's the back side of the building. It doesn't face the front side of the building, which means you have trash cans, you have parking, you have those sides of the building that don't look very well, which means that if you take down the school, you've got to clean up the area. You have to prepare the people for the fact that there will be a cultural center going up, and they will be happy that that will be happening. So in a timeline, if all the people on the stage and the people that are out there, and Ponas Valiūnas and Mr. Zabulis and Anna, roll up their sleeves and get to work, then in our lifetime, we will see the area cleaned up, we will see the school come down, we will see a wonderful memorial come up, and I am hoping that in about 5 years' time, we can all come to the grand opening. That would be a normal timeline. I'm 58 years old. Professor Landsbergis is not 29. I would love to see him come to the grand opening. I would love to see all of us come to the grand opening. So I think that let's be realistic. Do not wait for government money. The area can be cleaned up. We've done it without waiting for a handout. And, you know, one of the credos of my life has always been something that JFK said, JFK, John F. Kennedy. Maybe that's because I'm from Massachusetts. Maybe that's because I was a little girl when he was shot. And I'll never forget watching television and seeing that the President of the United States had been shot. It was really a traumatic day for me. And when he said, don't ask what your country can do for you, ask what you can do for your country. It's the same about the Jewish community. I think that if people pull together, you've got wonderful talent worldwide, just amazing, amazing people. You just have to pull it together, and this memorial can happen. I think it's very workable, it's very doable, and I'll back it as much as I can, and I wish you every success, and I think the people of the community will be overjoyed.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Really, words of inspiration for all of us, and I'm sure that Mayor Šimashus will love an entry on his Facebook page on the lawn which was not mowed. I'm sure that will be done very quickly after this public embarrassment for the city. And thank you so much for your words and of encouragement, and indeed for quoting President Kennedy, who was such a great man, even though not a Litvak, but nobody's perfect. But we still have, perhaps we're over time a bit, but let's use this opportunity because we have great people on the stage for 10 minutes or so of debate with the audience, to gather several questions and to have the speakers reply. If you could be very short, if you could introduce yourself, and you could also say if a question is specifically directed to somebody individually or not. So we open the floor. Here we go.
Supratau. Aš labai dėkinga, ponia Baškauskaitė, aš labai atsiprašau, aš jūsų nepažinau. Aš esu Bogališkytės draugė, mes labai su jumis bendravom prieš 15 metų.
Bogališkytės friend, and we've been in contact for many years, but people change as places do. I really enjoyed your speech, and I wanted to clear this atmosphere a little bit and make it a bit more joyful, because the representative of the religious community talked a bit towards the sad end. I am an architect and I work a lot with the old town of Vilnius, and in this crossroad showed by Nunkaitė, this place had 5 synagogues, and I want to calm him down by saying that I don't know what draft project you've seen, but what the architect has shown was not restoration, it was just a symbol. And what you've seen, beautiful pictures by 3D presentation, and when I told them, and where is this beauty of the great synagogue, they drew some ugly windows. And I asked them, why did you draw this like that? And they said it's not being done by an architect, but by a computer specialist. Now every architect can make drawings in a computer. So make sure that these computer specialists are not going to be rebuilding the synagogue. And I guess they are not Jewish, because every Jew would firstly make a product and then sell it, and they made it the other way around.
First of all, I would like to correct you. Some did return. I'm here already 13 years from Washington, D.C. I'm fully agreeing with the ex-dean, president of the university. I was also involved in fundraising, even though not such a big budget like your university. I was the founder of the Washington Conservative of Music, a non-profit organization, and it was a daily job to go to ask. It is, I believe, that after you find one or two, it's not one major contributor, you get 10 lining up after that. And then the government will jump on the wagon. Everybody likes to jump on the wagon after the project starts. So I really agree with you. Something else, now to Mr. Levin. Nobody suggested here, and also the project of architect Zak, but we are going to build a synagogue. We have one synagogue, and I think for 3,000 people is enough. And I agree with you, but this should not be a religious place. I think it has to be an educational place, it has to be a memorial, and a place of memory, of restoring and saving whatever is there. And nobody is suggesting that we're going to build another temple here. So I think we should be very careful not talking about building a whole synagogue. Obviously, the project of Zak can be amended. Obviously, 25 years have passed. Things have changed. I agree with people. But basically, it's a good, her project is a very good start. It's a good starting point. Thank you.
Thanks a lot. Let's get another two people. We do have statements, but no questions. Maybe we'll have some questions.
Amnon Baror. I don't have questions. I have some remarks, sorry. First of all, I think the conclusion of these 2 amazing days should be a steering committee that would take everything that has been said here and put it down and make some decisions, first of all. Because otherwise it would stay, you know, like maybe in the YouTube, but we don't really operate anything. Then, as much as I appreciate the archaeological excavation, I don't think that should lead us, because then we'll stay underground. And I think we better wait a little bit with archaeology till we know what we want to do in this site. And I didn't hear any decisive project really saying something about what is going to be there. So before really trying to do all this effort, which I really appreciate, but I think it is part of the realization of a project, not before the project. Then, with all due respect to Tzila Zak, and I really appreciate what we've seen, it's only an envelope. I wouldn't say that everything can be done there. You don't do the envelope and then think, what should we put there? You start with the contact, and then you build the envelope. So I think that was the decision should be taken, first of all, what to do there, and that's up to a steering committee that would present all the communities, all the stakeholders, and then we can go ahead and, with all the respect of this respectful lady, I think I would say something that maybe you won't agree with me, but I do insist to say it. I didn't come all the way from Tel Aviv here and keep it in my stomach. I don't think you don't have to destroy the building. Destroying the building is destroying part of the history of the site. And if you want to take care of the traumas that has been there, you don't eliminate anything. By seeing this part of the building, which we all hate, but it's part of the history, and we have to take care of it, maybe put different uses of this building, but do keep it, don't destroy it, because when you destroy it, we do the same thing that has been done to us. Thank you.
Thank you. There was a gentleman right here. Yeah.
Thank you. I have a small message about a possible donation to the future cultural center, and I will even try to finish with a question. I think that we all understand, as it has just been said by Mr. Kaplanas, that there is not going to be a reconstruction, restoration of the synagogue. The idea is at least to make possible the presentation of the archaeological excavations, which should be continued, and hopefully to further going into a more advanced phase and to construct a modest, I agree with Professor Braverman, a modest cultural center which refers to the past, but which may deal with future challenges that our humanity faces, and which tolerance can be one of the guidelines to deal with. And in this context, I'm happy to let you know that I've received a message from the board of the Weizmann Institute of Science and from my own board of Yad Chaim Weizmann within the Weizmann Institute of Science. We are ready to organize and finance an annual 3-day event in the future cultural center, which will be dedicated to bring international experts each year on a different theme. We can start with something more pertinent to Litvak tradition, but which is also pertinent to the world. You know, the personality of Joseph Klausner. Every Israeli, or civilized Israeli, knows about him. He wrote about the man from Nazareth, Jesus Christ. We can deal with Jesus, Judaism, and Europe. It is pertinent to the future. We can deal with alternative energies and global warming. We can deal with direct Jewish historical matters and with matters which concern every human being who lives today and who will hopefully live 200 years from today. And I say hopefully live because we know nothing about the risks and dangers that we all face. Therefore, the Weizmann Institute of Science will be happy to finance such annual colloquium. This is just one event. I think you need at least 10 events like this, but it's a starter. Of course, provided that things will be fastened, will be done with a certain acceleration. I think that we have both the willingness, we already have a good plan that can be accommodated to different tasks. I think that right now the important idea of the steering committee, as Professor Bar-Or said, is to concentrate on the content. I don't think that right now anyone should decide about a new competition, because a new competition is senseless if we do not know what the content, the future contents are. And maybe we also discover when we deal with this that there is no need for a new competition. But let's be neutral about it and not decide this way or the other. I think concentrating on the contents, realizing that there is a reasonably good historical plan that contributed enormously during the last 26 years to our understanding and our knowledge of this place. And I don't want to impose the theme that I've just raised, but this is just an example to thematic contribution that such a cultural center may bring in the future. And as a Weizmann Institute board member, I just contacted the chairperson of the board. He gave me the okay to say that we will finance it happily, an annual 3-day event dedicated to either a Jewish or a global, historic or futuristic theme that concerns the whole of humanity, hopefully. I'm working in parallel with the Israel Museum of Jerusalem to receive an identical annual donation. It's not yet confirmed. I hope that within a few days we'll be able to receive also a similar promise from the Israel Museum of Jerusalem, of which I'm also a member of the board. So thank you very much, and I would like to check with Simonas Gurevicius, I promised a question, whether he believes that such an approach can be viable for a future cultural center in a community that he will hopefully continue to lead democratically.
Thank you. Thank you for this beautiful initiative. And let's take the last question. There was a gentleman behind.
So I'm not going to address architectural points, although there's much discussion there. I want to pick up on 2 phrases that have been used. One is this obsession about tolerance, center of tolerance. Tolerance is not such a great thing. Tolerance is essentially an inactive position. We tolerate, that is, we accept the status quo. We don't want something in this project or in our lives that is merely tolerant. We want something that is dynamic, that is engagement. And I think it's important, as this project goes forward, to think more about engagement, which is an active pursuit. And that picks up on something that Sila Zak said. She may have been paraphrasing my friend Barbara Kirschenblatt-Gimlet, who's led the Poland Museum for many years, that this conference, that this discussion is actually part of the monument, part of the process. And all aspects of engagement are part of the process. And steering committees are great. I think one is needed, but you need to also seek a broad base with different nodes or different pockets of activity that pursue different aspects to create a constituency of interest. And this includes Jews and Lithuanians, Israelis, Americans, South Africans, Russians, everybody who, as the project goes on, then becomes invested in its future. Then, if the Weizmann Institute or the Israel Museum or some other group funds an activity, there are people ready to be engaged. It's not just a small elitist, alienated, separated group. It is a broad-based process. So I just want to encourage that this type of more democratic and inclusive and engagement take place. And it doesn't have to be for the big things only. It can be when we cut the grass, or when you dig a hole, or when you're doing archaeology. You can try to engage as many people as participants or witnesses or commentators as possible. And it has worked in other places. I think it can work here as well.
Many thanks. Now, very quick reactions to the audience's views. Sorry, we don't have more time because really we are really running very late. But 20 seconds, counting.
My name is Evgeny Hiterer. I just have to say something. I'm afraid it will be not said. I'd like to point out important thing that, as far as I know, all people participating in this conference, in this event, everybody from the organizers, speakers, guys helped here with microphones, including guys organized the virtual reality presentations. Everybody did it for any remuneration and without any intention to get in the future order or something like this. So, first of all, I'd like to thank all these people. Thank a lot. And really, and secondly, I would like to ask everybody, you know, all of us can make mistake, but we should be very careful with the goodwill people doing something from their heart. And even if they make some mistakes, let's be patient and let's encourage them to go further. Thank you.
Yeah, that was worth 20 seconds indeed. Very good, important messages. Very quick reactions to what we've heard from the audience. Maybe, well, we'll start with Professor Ravenstein and then...
Seniority first.
Well, Professor Landsbergis, you've been given the honor.
Thank you. As I see, and of course it is a usual and common thing, but they are things of temporary matters and significance and those of eternal. Now we are in touch with was and still is eternal. And we have to be care about it and to not allow to die yet. When we have some periods, some history, some heritage, it is either living or dying. Let us vote for and work for life and to keep the things of great significance, of great value for mankind alive and alive, to not allow them die.
Thank you very much. Professor
I just say one comment. First, we find out that the president was my guest in 1998, so this is my first time after 19 years. With God help, maybe I'll be for the 20th year next year. We don't know each other. I respect when I see people like that, but I agree with you 100%. I was fortunate to build a university, an area around that. If I was waiting for the government and Professor Jablonka will be there, it will never happen. But government is cumbersome, etc. You have to start the way you said, and then people like that will support you and will come with that. But the creation have to be here. Absolutely right, you are an example, and it's so true, and it's so nice, the support. But the second issue, you have to choose the right people. Money is easy. I always find in myself, if there is a person with a vision, person that execute, money today in the world works everything. And it's very nice what Edley say, but I will give you 10 universities in the world. I bring you Stanford, Harvard, when it will be ready. That's easy. The question is the money now to start, and the key person, the person who will lead it. And that's have to be an intellectual, creator, entrepreneurial, and then it will be very easy to pick some people. You don't have conference anymore. You say that, you know, committees. Forever we'll sit, around 25 years. Some people, you know, I came here as from the moon. I'm not involved with that up till now. I don't know if I'll be involved. But I did something in my life, and I'm almost 70, so I have experience. That's the only way to do things. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
What are you doing for the next year? I'm not sure. I tell you, I'm not sure I'll be involved. I have to think about that. Because when I'm involved, I'm not coming to conferences. I'm doing things. The idea is to bring people and to do things and not discuss it anymore.
Okay. Mr. Goravicius, there was a question to you specifically?
I think that the Jewish community here, not only today, but also in 20, in 40 years, will have a place where to come to see its past, and also to show that we are still here. Thank you very much for the nice words about the future and about the current situation in the Jewish community today. But I just would like to agree with all the speakers. We as Jewish people, we are ready to join the efforts, but this memorial will be much stronger and much longer will stay as a living place when it's going to be joint efforts of everyone. Doesn't matter Jewish, Lithuanian, because it's a memorial to our past and it's a guarantee for our better future. When I say our, I don't mean our only as Jewish, our as all of us. So thank you.
Mr. Levinas, would you like to react to the comments? No. Anyone else? Yeah, Madame Bashkauskaitė.
I think that this memorial should be a memorial to life because there are so many people that can't be present that suffered in the Holocaust. And the world has taken notice in a big way. I think it's wonderful that in the United States on public broadcasting, there was the movie on Nova about the Holocaust escape tunnel. Many people watch Nova. Many people watch public broadcasting. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. Once this memorial is built, people will come. And people will know about Vilnius. People will know about the history. And we will bring those people who can't be with us back to life in our memories. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Bernardi.
You know, I worked in some management position, and in all the meetings or some meetings what I had, you always can hear at least 100 opinions what not to do. And it was not easy to find one opinion how to do and can it's be done. And I think it's anyone doesn't ask my opinion, but Mr. Avishai Braverman is a good candidate that we will at least support to deal with this project. And you see, I brought a small present to the to Litvak's work that organized excellent conference. And it's two hands that our cooperation with you, and next time I think that I have to order from artists maybe 20, maybe 100 hands that all of the nice persons what I meet, someone the first time they supporting this project, that it will be the maybe most important, at least project for Litvaks and for Lithuania too.
Many thanks. And many thanks indeed for all the speakers and their views, and for your patience, and for the two-day wonderful conference. Let's hope that indeed, as Professor Landsbergis has told us, we choose life over death and we choose future over past. And in the words of George Friedman, who congratulated our conference, saying that the Litvak tradition fundamentally was about the rule of law and about tolerance, that those two virtues and values will be with us, 100 and 200, many centuries from now, and Vilnius will be the symbol of that, and it was always the case in the past. So to conclude the conference, and indeed to make that point and the conclusion and the recommendation for the future, I would like to invite Dr. Arūnas Gelūnas, the member of Lithuanian Parliament and the former Cultural Minister of Lithuania, to the stage, please.